Okay, so solving quadratic equations, quadratic formula. I went over this in class, or that's what I'm planning on doing, is going over this in class. So this should just be like an optional video, but I'm not sure if I should factor or use the quadratic formula. So the only time you should use the quadratic formula is when you can't factor. Okay, so let's look at this. If we have k squared minus negative k squared minus 8 equals 10k, well, we need to get everything to one side. So I'm just going to move. I added the k squared over and added the 8. So I get k squared plus 10k plus 8 equals 0. And I always want this in standard form. Okay. The quadratic formula is upon us. So this is the quadratic formula. X equals negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you can remember that if you remember like the Pop Goes the Weasel song. It's like x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's tons of videos that you can watch if you need to figure out a way to remember that. But x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So a is the first coefficient, b is the second, c is the third. So in this case, a is 1, b is 10, and c is 8. So then I'm just going to plug that in, and I think I actually want to write this down, and then we can double check with my work. So this is going to be k, because it's usually x if it's like an x squared one, like ax squared plus bx plus c. Since we're using k, I'm just going to put k. So k equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 10 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And then all we have to do here is simplify this down. So this is going to be negative 10 plus or minus, well, 10 squared is 100. 4 times 8 is 32. And then all over 2. Well, I guess so here would be 4 times 1 is 4 times 8 is 32. 100 minus 32 is 68. I should be able to do that in my head, but so this is negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 68 all over 2. Now this square root right here, we have to simplify it. Okay, so the square root of 68, let's just break it down. That's going to be 2 and 34, which is 2 and 17. So we can have a group of 2. So this is the same as 2 square roots of 17. Okay, so this equals negative 10 plus or minus the 2 square roots of 17 all over 2. And then we can just simplify this. 2 goes into all of that. So 2 divides 10 5 times. That's a 1, and now that's a 1. So we're left with negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 17. And just remember, that's 2. We have 2 different answers here. So this is negative 5 plus the square root of 17 and negative 5 minus the square root of 17. Okay. So let's just click through this, make sure we get the same thing. Yep. Cool. Okay, let's do a couple more. So 3a squared plus 2a equals 24. I'm going to subtract that 24 over. 3a squared plus 2a minus 24 equals 0. You can try and factor this. It's not going to work. So a equals 3, b equals 2, and c equals negative 24. So I'm just going to plug that in. So a equals negative b, so negative 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 2 squared, minus 4 times a times c, so times 3 times negative 24, all over 2a. So then this equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus Negative 4 times 3 times negative 24 is 288. I just used my calculator. And then 2 times 3 is 6. And let's add that underneath the square root. So that's negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 292 over 6. Simplify your radical, you must. So let's simplify that 292. So that's 2 and 146, 2 and 73. 73 is prime, so that can't go further. So that's the same as 2 square roots of 73. So then this becomes negative 2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 73 over 6. Now all of that can be divided by 2. So 2 is divided by 2, 2 square roots of 73 is divided by 2, and 6 is divided by 2. So I'm left with negative 1 plus or minus square root of 73 over 3. And I just wrote it as 2 answers so that we can see that there are 2 answers here. Okay, let's do one more. So 8a squared plus 1 equals negative 8a. So let's move that 8a over. So it's 8a squared plus 8a plus 1 equals 0. So then a equals 8, b equals 8, and c equals 1. So then this is going to be a equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 8 times 1 all over 2 times 8. So you're just plugging in those numbers. I'm hoping this is review, but so then that's negative 8 plus or minus 8 squared is 64. 4 times 8 times 1 is 32. And that's over 16. 64 minus 32 is 32. So that's negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 32 over 16. Did you just ask if I have to simplify? Yes, you have to simplify this. So square root of 32 is 2 times 16, which is 4 times 4. So I can pull out that 4. So that's the same thing as 4 square roots of 2. So let's just replace that. Negative 8 plus or minus 4 square roots of 2 over 16. Now 4 goes into 4 square roots of 2, 8, and 16. So I end up with negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 over 4. And that breaks into the 2 answers. Cool? All done. Off you go. That poor dog. So ugly. It literally looks like my dog if I was to shave half of him. Okay, bye.